And Iran's decision to pull out of the 2015 nuclear deal sends shockwaves all across the globe.
Our Middle East expert now, Ric Epps, joining us now to explain it all. Ric, good morning to you.
Good morning.
To ask about the stability in the Middle East, given that announcement, on top of everything else that's happened, where can you put this into what this means?
You know, it's interesting that people call it shocking news, first of all.
Yeah, I was going to point, not shocking.
It's not shocking.
Sure.
What did you expect to happen? I mean, it's unfortunate. Let me just say real quickly, the Iran nuclear deal, the original deal that was put in place by the previous administration, it wasn't a great deal, but it was a good deal because it was a first start to start change from the inside of Iran. You get rid of the deal, there's nothing in place of it, and then you impose sanctions. So then the people who were trying to incite peace now are being squeezed to not be able to have a voice. And that's what we see happening. The reality of this, though, is that now they're going to start enriching uranium. They don't have any reason not to, which is a byproduct. Plutonium is a byproduct of uranium. That is how you get nuclear weapons.
Right.
So now they're saying, okay, you've taken the gloves off. We're going to take the gloves off.
Just a few weeks ago, we were talking about what was happening within Iran and the people. The images now coming out after General Soleimani was killed was hundreds of thousands of people, Rick, on the streets. You see it right here, this 3-day mourning period. There's 80 million people who live in Iran.
Yeah.
Some say this is the 1 million that are the families of the mullahs or the family of the government and the friends of the government, many saying that are even paid to come out on the street.
Yeah.
Where is the 79 other million people in Iran right now who just a few weeks ago were protesting their government?
Yeah, that's interesting because there's two different sides of this story, right? And one of it is the notion that the regime has brought out people as sort of a public propaganda, right?
Sure.
But there's also another part of this, that in the midst of that crisis that's been happening internally in Iran, where they've been asking for regime change and asking for political, change in the country, that now those people have had their voices squashed in the midst of this imminent threat by the United States toward their country. So now what it does, it really puts pressure on the people in Iran to either get in line with the regime, right, or to get the heck out as quick as they can, and that doesn't happen as quickly in Iran. So it really does create a bigger problem internally for them, but it also radicalizes some of those folks who had once, in fact, they discussed yesterday the issue of the radicalization of people who had been supporting change. Now they have to go, now we have to look inside and protect our country, and now we've got a bigger problem with the next generation of potential Islamic, extremists that may come out of this.
Yeah, President Trump threatening also sanctions against the Iraqi parliament, who then voted to expel U.S. troops. What happens if the troops have to leave Iraq? We want it out, but we're there in terms of fighting, keeping ISIS down. What does all this mean? There's like an entanglement there that's been there for obviously a very long time. Yeah,
since the end of the Iraq War, right?
Sure.
It's interesting because there are a couple things playing here. One is the Iraqis are very upset about the fact that we took action without notifying them. Which is justifiable. If you're the head of a regime, of course you're going to be upset about that. And so the reality is, if we get asked to leave and we have to go, then that's going to allow the Iranian Shia, who already have tremendous amount of influence in Iraq, to then grow their influence there. It's going to further radicalize other groups to call, like a call to arms, if you would. So you're going to have regional instability, and of course, two of the largest oil reserves on the planet that'll have control of an incredible amount of force. The other aspect in that is, which we haven't talked about, which is Israel over here on the other side, right? Because is there yesterday Mike Pompeo mentioned that there was, and they asked him pointedly, was the justification for killing Soleimani an imminent threat? And he was very vague about the answer. And so that's a huge issue, because now because the consequences of the decision are tremendous in terms of the threat to the economic global economy, because now we're all afraid to fly. Who's going to be flying when in the midst of potential threat?
Yeah, and I think that's the big conversation piece that probably happened over the weekend with not only Iranian Americans who live here, but everybody. My question to you would be, will we see war?
We will see a conflict, but it will not be in the context, like I think I mentioned the other day, it won't be our military lined up against their military. Those kinds of wars are really played out. But as I mentioned the other day, the idea of what we call asymmetric warfare or a war of attrition, terrorist
Proxy wars,
attacks,
right.
you know, even think about how much damage you do when I mentioned the economy a moment ago, if people are afraid to fly, what that does to cause, the cause and effect of not just our country, but every country that Americans travel to, because who's going to take the risk to fly when they're preparing, you know, possible imminent threats that you could be assaulted or attacked? So it doesn't just impact us. And so my concern is that the policies that have been implemented at this point in time, you know, one, and I'm not diminishing the fact that Soleimani was a bad guy, but there are a lot of other bad people out there that we've allowed to hang around for a very long time. Gaddafi, Saddam Hussein, we had lots of people we've sided with along the way. So the question is, how do you know, was this a well thought out endeavor? And it's looking more and more problematically like this may have been a bigger, you know, there may be some underlying issues that weren't thought of, and now the consequences are coming forward.
People are starting to get afraid in terms of putting a little perspective to all of this. How much of this is the typical posturing on the part of Iraq or Iran in this matter, or is it more than just the typical posturing this time around? Because we've seen the burning American flags, we've seen them chant death to America forever.
Yeah.
Is it different now? Is there more reason for concern now than before?
I think there's more reason for concern for a couple of different reasons. Yes, we have seen all the rhetoric and things like that, but now you've taken a step where you've now killed the third highest in command in their country. That sends a different kind of signal to them. And think about it, if you were the leader of your own country and somebody took out your security chief, love him or hate him, the reality is now you're backed into a corner. And that's what we get to that again, that security dilemma where, you know, we have to think about protracted strikes. The thing you have to remember though, it may not happen in the immediacy. People here are used to cause and effect. But think for a moment, when we took out 1953, Mohammad Mossadegh, the reality didn't happen until 25 years later with the ouster of the Shah. They have a very long, slow memory, so that people might be looking and going, aha, we won today. You can win today, but you may very well find yourself losing tomorrow. So that's the danger in all this, and it can be an ongoing, slow process. They're very patient in their retribution.
As they said, they will be.
Yeah.
All right, Ric Epps, thank you for being here.
Thank you.